Hey everyone, welcome or welcome back to How to Train Your Gavin. Today I'm going to be going through my bookshelves and picking out all of the horror books that I have not yet read. This could be a long video because I'm terrible for collecting books more than reading them. But it's fine because I do plan on getting to these books eventually. But since we are in spooky season now, or at least, from September 1st, it's spooky season, I thought it'd be fun to have a look at the books that, are a bit spooky, horror, thriller, whatever I've got that is bound to give you goosebumps. That is what I will be showing you in this video. As you can see, the Halloween decorations are cheaper than I am. So already I have broken fairy lights. I only got these 2 days ago. I got these 2 days ago, and I was in the middle of an interview with a spooky middle grade writer when they went off. Now I ain't blaming it on the boogie, I'm blaming it on the ghost. I have a ghost living in this house. I just know it. So yeah, this is my really bad attempt at making my bookshelves a little bit more spooky, so just bear with me, please. So I'll do this in age category order, kind of. I will do the children's and middle grade books first, and then I will go into young adult and adult together, because for me, sometimes it's hard to know which one's which. That's a ghost trying to kill me again. So if you've read any of these books, do leave a comment, let me know which books I should prioritise, and who knows, I might end up putting it on my October TBR next month. But also don't forget to leave this video a like if you enjoy, and subscribe if you haven't already. So let's get into the horror-ish books that I really need to read because they're on my shelves, so I own them, so I should read them. So for the middle grade books, They Threw Us Away by Daniel Kraus. This is the first book in the Teddy saga, and even just the cover really creeps me out, so I just know this is going to be a really spooky read, especially since Holly Black on the back says this is a deliciously macabre fairy tale full of snuggles. So this could be like a bit of a spoopy book, like a spooky but cute kind of book. But this book essentially follows a group of teddies who have been discarded by their owners in a garbage dump, and they want to get back home. But with the illustrations being so creepy, either the teddies get their revenge, or it's like the environment that these teddies get into that will be spooky. I mean, this is 2 pieces. Just 2 pieces. And that's a little bit scary. The sketch illustrations makes it look even scarier. So I'm reading this in October for Middle Grade Monthly, so I'm excited to dive into it. Next one is The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. So this one follows Emmeline, whose dad has disappeared, and she has a mother who doesn't really look after her, so she is shipped off to a private boarding school in England. While she's there, she ends up discovering these symbols, these really strange and mysterious symbols, that may have something to do with her dad's disappearance, and leads her to the Order of Black Hollow Lane. It looks really spooky. I love the cover of it. I do have a few friends who have read this and enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to reading it too. In the month of September, I am reading all the Goosebumps books, so I'm not going to include any of those in this video, but I will include like Goosebumps Series 2000 by R.L. Stine, as well as the Give Yourself Goosebumps books and the Goosebumps Horrorland books. So I have these books, well, I have more of them, but I didn't want to hold all of them up. But I love the Goosebumps series so much, and I really do enjoy the Series 2000 series. It was so much darker and scarier than the original series, even though the original series holds a special place in my heart, but they do follow different stories with different characters in very dangerous and scary situations. This is a collection that I remember getting at a car boot sale like back in the 90s or something, or like early 2000, but I didn't read all of them. I think I did read a lot of these ones. I think one of my favorites was Headless Halloween, which is in this collection, but then I also really did enjoy the Give Yourself Goosebumps series, and this one was just the first one, Escape from the Carnival of Horrors. I love Choose Your Own Adventure stories, so the Give Yourself Goosebumps books were so good. And the Goosebumps Horrorland books, haven't read a single one. They're a bit more new than the classic series, so I don't know how great they are and if they are as good as the originals, but I'm still excited to read them, especially since the first one is Revenge of the Living Dummy, and Slappy is one of my favourite Goosebumps villains, so I'm excited to give this a try because I do think it's actually going to surprise me. Next is Grimworld by Avery Morey. This one looks so good. It reminds me of a video game that I've lost the name of, but it has that kind of vibe because it's set in Grimworld and it's always nighttime and there are different creatures that live there, and even the main character seems a little bit different because they eat sugar slugs every day, and I just think everyone in this town is a little bit odd. But there is apparently a night spook that is trying to lure our main character to a graveyard, so I think this will have some fantastic Halloween vibes, and this is so short as well, so I think that I could get through this in literally a few minutes. No, I'm not that fast. Like a couple of hours. And yeah, it looks spooky. but cute in a way. The next one is a bit recent, and thank you so much to Kendra for sending me it. But that is The Collector by K.R. Alexander. Cover alone, again, is so creepy. It's a creepy doll. What more do you need? We follow Josie, who moves in with her grandmother, and she has these 3 rules. And one of these rules is to not go to a creepy house in the middle of the woods. What does our main character do? She goes to this creepy house in the middle of the woods. Not only that, but she makes a new friend called Vanessa, and she is the one who is enabling her to go to this strange house. So why? But also, are there creepy dolls in this? Because there has to be. There's one on the cover. So I'm terrified already. Okay, the next one genuinely terrifies me. I'm saying that about every single one, but this one genuinely does. And this one is The Legend of Skeleton Man by Joseph Bruchac. And this one is a 2-book collection, Skeleton Man and the Return of Skeleton Man. So this one follows Molly, and she lives in the Mohawk Reserve, and she is told these terrifying tales from her father, and one of her favourite terrifying tales is The Legend of Skeleton Man. Skeleton Man is a ghosty thin man, and he has an insatiable hunger, and then one day her parents go missing, and she ends up having to stay with somebody she doesn't know, and she reminds her an awful lot of Skeleton Man. So what happens next? I don't know, it sounds really good. One that I mentioned was on my TBR in my spooky middle grade recommendations video last year was The Dark Deep by Allie and Brendan Reeks, and this one is the start of a series that is a little bit harder to get hold of now, I think. All I know about this is that it's set at spooky Still Cove, and a group of friends, they go there and they have this boat that seems to have a bit of a life of its own, and one of their friends falls into the water and mysteries start to happen. Apparently there's something deep beneath the water that is calling to them, and that again is a terrifying concept. So yeah, this is one that I should have read last year. It was in my recommendations video last year. Let me be clear though, I do say that I hadn't read it yet in that video. It was a TBR recommendation. Okay. Now I know true north, cause now your house in the woods. Yeah, the next book is by Yvette Fielding, who is a host of Most Haunted, and this is the first in the Ghost Hunter Chronicles called The House in the Woods. Reminds me all the time of Lost in the Woods from Frozen 2. But this follows 3 kids, and for some reason, in an abandoned house, they decide to play with a Ouija board. And they don't realise the horrors they're about to unleash. Of course, you're playing with a Ouija board, something's bound to happen, so then it plunges them into this mystery of these ghosts that come out of this Ouija board. And from that moment on, I think they do become ghost hunters, because this is the first in the Ghost Hunter Chronicles, so I'm really excited for that concept. Yeah, I'm definitely reading it in a few weeks' time, and I'm so pumped. The vlog for this is going to be next level. I'm telling you now. Next up is The Bewitching of Evelyn Jones by Phil Hicks, and this one is a sequel of sorts to The Bewitching, no it's not, The Haunting of Evelyn Jones, and they are standalone stories, so you can read this one first if you would like to, but we follow Evelyn, who comes to this new village, and there are these stone things, witch stones. Should have known that. But it is an ancient structure in this village, and somehow Evelyn ends up getting entangled with this witchy mystery, and she gets bewitched. So yeah, now I love The Haunting of Evelyn Jones. It was so good. It was a really super spooky children's book, and this one is going to live up to that. I just know it. One that I've been really meaning to read, and honestly, it's an absolute joke that I haven't already, and that is Crater Lake and Crater Lake Evolution by Jennifer Killick. All I really know about this one is that it follows a group of friends who, on a school trip, go to Crater Lake, and it sounds very Friday the 13th-esque. I think there's a bloodied man, or a bloodstained man, who tries to stop the coach, and there are these weird things that are going on at Crater Lake. And it also reminds me of the Goosebumps book, Welcome to Camp Nightmare, and I just think the blending of the two is going to be so fantastic to read, because I'm scared of camps and scared of camping outdoors. Yeah, this one will probably get me more scared than a lot of the adult books that are coming up in this video, to be honest. Okay, it turns out I don't actually have that many spooky middle grade books that I haven't read. So the last middle grade spooky one is Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab, and I'm pretty sure you would have heard of this one. This is the 3rd book in the Cassidy Blake series, and it follows a young girl who can see ghosts, and she helps them cross over. And she has a ghost friend as well called Jacob, and I really enjoyed the first 2. I love the vibe of this series and how it goes from place to place, and this one is set in New Orleans, and I love New Orleans so much. It's such a fantastic setting. Never been myself, but I love the books that I've read that have it in, so I think this one's going to be fantastic and have a really great atmosphere. I am a little bit apprehensive because of other things that are in this book, but I'm pretty sure I will still enjoy the ghost story in it. So on to the young adult and the adult books then. They really will be mixed into one, I'm afraid. Now, I still have a majillion Stephen King books to read, so I'm just going to hold up one. But Salem's Lot is probably the Stephen King book that I'm most looking forward to reading out of the ones that I own. I think I have about 8 Stephen King books that I haven't read yet. but honestly, my math skills are rubbish, so I could be wrong on that. This one follows Ben, who is a writer, and he comes back to like the small New England town of Salem's Lot. I think that's what the place is actually called. And he ends up witnessing something from a new neighbor that unsettles him, and there are different things that happen in Salem's Lot. There are vampires, I believe. I think there are vampires in this. But I haven't seen any movies or anything like that, so I'm interested to see like actually what happens in this book, because with a lot of Stephen King books, I kind of know a general idea of them from their movies that I've seen, and there are some Stephen King books that I would never touch with a barge pole, and I own a couple of them. This one is one that calls to me the most, so that's the only one I'm talking about in this video. The next book is The Deep by Alma Katsu, and what drew me to this book was the Titanic. Now, if you know me, you will know that I am actually a little bit obsessed with the Titanic. I always get really emotional every April at the anniversary. It's just a story that really resonates with me. So any kind of book or movie that has the Titanic in it, I do feel this magnetic pull towards. And this one, even though I haven't heard the best things about it, I still really want to read it. This one follows Annie, who goes on board the Titanic, and there are these ghostly happenings that happen, and then obviously, as everyone knows, the Titanic sinks and Annie survives, and 4 years later she becomes a nurse on the Britannic. And these ghostly happenings seem to happen again. So I don't think a lot of the story is actually set on the Titanic. I think it just maybe starts there and we get glimpses into these ghostly phenomenons that happen there. But I'm still really intrigued to read it. I love the cover as well, like just that is rather terrifying. And honestly, the deep ocean itself scares me. So if this plays on my fear of the ocean, then I will be really, really excited to read it, because I love confronting my fears in books. Next up, The Lamplighters by Emma Stonix. I was supposed to read this like 3 or 4 months ago, but I didn't. It didn't happen. So this one is set in Cornwall, and like 30 years before, there were 3 lighthouse keepers, who disappeared from inside a locked lighthouse. And the doors were locked from the inside, the clocks have stopped, so nobody knows what happened to them. So 20 years later, not 30, I'm telling you lies, 20 years later, the women they left behind want to find out what happened. I don't know why it took them 20 years to want to find out. I mean, maybe they do try beforehand. Maybe a ghostly thing happens that forces them to find out the mystery. I don't know. This is why I need to read it to find out, because it still interests me so much. Haven't really heard anyone talk about it, so I really want to give this one a go. This time I mean it. I know I had it on my TBR a couple of months back, but this time I mean it. One that I read when I was probably a young teen, and I think this might be a teen book. It is The Devil's Footsteps by A.A. Richardson. And honestly, like, I can't barely remember what happened in this. There is a local legend in this one where if you play this rhyme, this really creepy rhyme, then you will find yourself at the devil's door, or something like that. This one follows Brian, whose brother was taken 5 years before, so he's seen the devil and he wants to try and save his brother, find out what happened. So I think this is like a young adult horror book. It's got a really creepy ass cover, so I don't know, it has been such a long time, 20 years maybe since I read this one, and I'm excited to see if it holds up to what I thought of it, which again, I have no idea what I thought of it. I can't even remember if I thought it was great or not. I just remember being creeped out by the rhyme, and that's about it. And next up is Tender as the Flesh by Agostina Bastarrica, and this one is one that genuinely terrifies me because I think there's some kind of cannibalism in this one. Yeah, again, I keep mentioning what I'm scared of in this video. I have a lot of fears. This is set in a world where animal flesh has become kind of corrupted by a virus, so then human meat becomes legal. There is like slaughtering humans in the way that animals are slaughtered, and like it's terrifying. I'm scared to read it, like really am. This one is translated from Spanish by Sarah Moses, so I'm interested to read the translation. Hopefully it's a good translation. But I don't know, like things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre terrifies me, and this sounds like it could be a little bit similar to that, even though it's not, but just the idea of humans being slaughtered and eaten is just, ugh. Okay, I'm going to move on. Next up is Tribesman by Adam Caesar, and I think this also has cannibals in it. Yeah, there is a sleazeball director who is directing this like low-budget horror movie, and he takes his cast and crew to this island where he disturbs the local tribes, and there are vengeful spirits on this island. It's a tribute to Cannibal Holocaust, and that is a movie I will never ever watch because it just looks like it's going to terrify me, and I'm a big scaredy cat, but I also love horror movies, but again, that one terrifies me. Like, that one just goes too far. in my opinion, and I haven't even seen it yet. So this one sounds similar, but I really do want to read it. Like, my interest in this peaks so high, especially since I loved Adam Caesar's Clown in the Cornfield, which was a young adult horror. So this is a full-on adult horror, so I can only imagine what it's like. Yeah, it looks really terrifying. Next is We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix, and I have read, I think, every other Grady Hendrix book. I believe I have. I think I've read them all at this point now. So this is like the last book that I need to read all of them. And I do really like Grady Hendrix as a writer. Some of the books have been a little hit and miss for me. Even just reading from the back, I can't really get too much of a synopsis from it, just that our main character used to be part of this huge band in the 1990s, and there were these events that happened, some traumatic events that happened that disbanded the band. And I think one of her bandmates becomes a really successful solo artist, so she tries to get the band back together in this like road trip across America kind of thing. There's got to be some kind of horror element to that as well, I think. Like, I genuinely have no idea beyond that what happens in this book. But yeah, it's the last Grady Hendrix book I need to read, so yeah. Next up is Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. This one really does pique my interest, not just because of the technical pages, which makes this look like a book that is like forbidden and I just found this line on the road or something. This one follows a horror writer who joins 3 other horror writers to spend, I guess, a night in a really haunted house that's been abandoned for years, and what seems like a publicity stunt to begin with becomes a night of terror, and that excites me. It sounds a little bit like that Halloween movie. I think it was Halloween Resurrection, where a group of kids filmed their night in Michael Myers' house. It sounds a little bit like that, and I kind of have a soft spot for Halloween Resurrection because it's just so bloody ridiculous, and definitely not one of the good entries in the Halloween series, but it had some iconic moments, and I like that idea, like the story of spending the night in a haunted house. Oh, that just gives me chills in a good way. One that definitely needs no introduction is Jaws by Peter Benchley. This gave me nightmares as a kid because I watched the movie when I was far too young, and I've just been terrified of the opening sequence ever since, and just the whole film in general, I guess. But yeah, I've been looking forward to reading the book. I haven't heard the best things about this book, quite honestly, but I still want to compare the book with the movie at some point. This is set in the small town of Amity, where there is this tragedy that happens where a young girl gets killed by a shark, and this shark is on a rampage, essentially. Lots of death follows, and a few characters go out into the ocean to stop this shark. This definitely gave me a huge fear of sharks. Again, oh my gosh, all of my phobias are coming out in this video. Another one that inspired a movie is I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lois Duncan. I had no idea that the 1997 slasher movie was based on this book. I should have known because it says it in the opening credits, but I just never paid attention, okay? And I Know What You Did Last Summer is one of my favourite slasher movies, so I'm really excited to see how the book compares to the movie. So I will be reading this next month, and I will be doing a video comparing the two, but it does follow 4 teens who accidentally run over somebody and try to dispose of his body, and it turns out a year later somebody saw what happened. Who is this person? How do they know what they did last summer? Although, to be fair, I don't know if it happens the exact same way in the book. I'm just going off what the movie does. I think it's pretty much the same premise. It'll be interesting to see how the movie changed the characters, the plot, all of that, because some of my favourite moments in that movie, I think, were rather cinematic, so I don't know if they will actually happen in the book, so I don't know what I'm going to think about it, but I'm so excited to read it. One that I feel like I've been losing a little bit of interest in recently is The Witch Elm by Tana French. This one follows Toby, who was viciously beaten up, and he ends up going to his family's ancestral home to kind of recover, but then he discovers a skull under a tree or something like that, and it starts off this really strange family mystery. I got this a little while back now. I think it's definitely been well over a year since I got this. When did it come out? I got it when it came out. My interest has wavered a little bit, but please, if you have read this and you loved it, please let me know, because I need that rejuvenation of my excitement for this book. But it's still on my shelves. I still need to read it at some point unless I unhaul it. But the premise got me, but I don't know if the premise is unique enough for me to stay. Another book that inspired movie is The Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. Now, I know there is an earlier book in this series, the first book of Hannibal Lecter, and I do want to read that book as well, but this is the only one that I own so far, so I just wanted to mention this one, especially since The Silence of the Lambs movie is one of my favourite movies when I was a kid. And when I say kid, I mean teen, when I first saw the movie. So like Jaws, I'm excited to see what the book does differently and what the movie actually used from this book as inspiration. I want to see all the comparisons and the differences. I believe the plot of this is probably the same as the movie, where we follow an FBI rookie called Clarice, and she goes to Hannibal Lecter, who is this madman who is in jail, to find out all she can about somebody who is killing people. This is more really thriller than horror, I think. Well, I mean, not all of the books I mentioned have been horror. Clickbait. Now, I myself personally cannot believe I have not read this yet, and that is Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House. This one follows Eleanor, who decides to take up Dr. Montague's invitation to spend a summer at Hill House, which is like this mysterious and very haunted house. Now, I really enjoyed the Netflix show, and I know this is like going to be totally different. I love ghost stories so much, and I think this is a classic for a reason, so this one is definitely going to have to be read at some point. So yeah, I feel like this is a betrayal on you guys for having not read this one yet. Don't worry, it will happen. The next one is a collection, and that is a Richard Lehman collection, and this one has The Glory Bus and Friday Night in a Beast House. And I think it's The Glory Bus that I was most excited to read, I think, because it was a friend at work who told me about this collection, and one of the stories in particular was one or the other, and about how messed up it is, and how horrific it is. And I think Richard Lehman is known for some really horrific horror books. The Glory Bus is apparently about a newlywed called Pamela who falls prisoner of a repulsive killer who's lusted after her since high school. But then the Glory Bus drives by, offering escape and hope of salvation. Pamela climbs aboard and aware that their destination is the furnace heat of the Mojave Desert, where a special welcome awaits. Can't be worse than what's gone before, can it? Literally, that doesn't give me anything. And then Friday Night in Beast House, Mark wants to do anything to get a date with Alison. Alison has one condition: he has to spend the night with her in the legendary Beast House. Okay, something's not right there. Ditch Alison. It kind of sounds like R.L. Stine, but for adults. And I'm pretty sure my friend at work said this is really messed up. So I'm both terrified and excited to read it, because this is the same person who recommended Off Season by Jack Ketchum, which honestly I still think about to this day. I'm scared for a reason. Next up I picked up because I liked the movie on Netflix, and that was Bird Box by Josh Malaman. So this one, a weird event happens. It's been a while since I watched the movie. I think this has the same plot, but this weird event happens where if you say something on the outside, like outside your house and things, you die. Oh my god, that's a terrible way of putting it. But I just remember Sandra Bullock running around with a blindfold on. That's all I remember. But I kind of lost interest reading this over the years because I got it during my hype for Bird Box, because I did enjoy it back then. Don't know if I would enjoy it as much now, rewatching it. So again, with the book, who knows? I might not enjoy it as much. I don't know. And then I have The Weight of All Flesh by Ambrose Parry. I mean, one thing is I hate when things are described as rip-roaring, because what the fuck does that mean? And we already have a rip-roaring tale on the top there, blurbed by Ian Rankin. I'm just like, explain. This one is set in Edinburgh in 1847, where Will is a medical student and Sarah is a housemaid, but then bodies start to pile up, and I think Will and Sarah team up to see what's going on in Edinburgh. It sounds very gothic, also sounds a little Stoke and Jack the Ripper-esque, I guess. So that's why I picked it up, because I like the premise of that. Lost interest over time, but I do still want to read it at some point, because having the 1847 Victorian kind of setting is something that really is going to grab my attention from the beginning and give me those gothic vibes. And I love me some gothic books, man. So onto some classic books then. I have Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, and oh my god, you can barely see the cover of this. It's very red and reflective, but it's a gorgeous cover. But this is a story that will inspire Dracula, apparently, by Bram Stoker. Was it Bram Stoker? No, Bram Stoker. Bram Stoker? No. So this is set in an isolated castle in the middle of the forest where Laura is looking after her ill father, and then Carmilla comes along, and she is this very eccentric, gorgeous woman, and I think there's some sapphic love in this too, which honestly I'm there for. I want to read this immediately. This predates Dracula by 26 years, so this is the original vampire story, although I'm sure there is The Vampire by, is it John Pilotti? Something like that. I think that was the first time a vampire was seen, or something. I don't know. I don't know the history of vampire, but I'm willing to find out. I also have The Magic Toy Shop by Angela Carter. This one follows Melanie, who is sent to London to live with some distant relatives she's never met before, and one of these relatives make these life-size puppets, and they're a little bit more real than Melanie would like. Again, puppets, dolls, anything humanoid is extremely terrifying. So this sounds like a gothic classic that's gonna get under my skin. I also have Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. This has been one that I've been wanting to read for such a long time. So this one is set the week before Halloween. There are two boys that want to uncover some mysteries in this mysterious carnival that's rolled into town or something like that. Yeah, they set out to explore the mysteries of the dark carnival smoke, mazes and mirrors. They will also discover the true peace of innermost wishes. Oh, spooky. I also have this gorgeous book, Classic Tales of Horror. And oh my god, look at the end paper there. Look at that creepy man. Such a creepy man. Oh my god. Oh my god, there's one there. Oh. There's loads of stories in here. I mean, some by Edgar Allan Poe, Bram Stoker, Washington Irving, Edgar Allan Poe, Arthur Conan Doyle, H.P. Lovecraft, Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, there's The Vampire by John William Polidori. Okay, I was very close. But this has some, you know, gruesome, horrific tales in, some really classic ones. So I'd love to get my teeth into some classic horror to see the roots of this wonderful genre. I've also never read The Phantom of the Opera, even though I've always loved the stage musical version of this story. You probably already know the story of The Phantom of the Opera. We have a phantom who haunts this opera house. We follow Christine, who is an opera singer, and the Phantom has this fixation on Christine, and it's kind of their story. That's a terrible way of explaining it. I don't know if the book is essentially the same as the stage musical. Most likely there are a lot of differences, but I think the general gist of it is the same. This one is written by Gaston Leroux, and it wasn't written on the cover, so I apologise for not saying his name. And then finally, I do have the complete tales and poems of Edgar Allan Poe. And I've read a couple of them. I read a couple of them for uni and college, and I really enjoyed the atmosphere of his stories and the clever twists of some of them. So I'm excited to read beyond what I read for college and uni, and to see the other kind of macabre stories that Poe wrote. He is such an icon and influence in a lot of people's writing to this day, so it'll be great to go back to those roots of the genre and see what all the fuss was about. I've had this book for a little while now as well, so it'll be great to actually get to it. It is extremely big, but you know what? I've handled bigger. So those were most, probably not all, but most of the horror books, the scary books, the spooky books that are on my shelves that I have not yet read, but yeah, I would love to. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave a like if you did, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment down below to let me know that you are here, let me know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned or if you're excited about any of them, and I might even put one of your recommendations on my TBR for next month. But thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye!